Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Good to be with you. And we've got an interesting show coming up tonight. Probably got some blokes coming on and joining us at some time soon. But we can remind you that you can participate in the show by using whatever platform you are on. The chat version of that. I have to be honest with you, if you're watching us on the Facey book, the book face, the chat doesn't work quite so well. It comes through to a software we're using, but it does come through. The best place to chat with us is on Twitch or on YouTube. But you can do it on Facebook as well if you're watching us there, and just say g'day and share your thoughts, and we'll take your thoughts on there as well. You can also join me on Discord, and the way you can do that, should I get the link? I should probably have prepared here's the one I prepared earlier. I'll get the link here, invite people and copy. The good thing about Discord is you can it's a weird thing to say you can call in. I'm just putting it into the chat engine now, which means you'll probably get it 30 seconds before you hear me, because that'll be live and this will be delayed by a little bit. So if you want to participate and converse on any of the things we're chatting about tonight, then you can do it through Discord, and we can actually have corridor one-to-one. We can speak and we can have a chat about it. So it's not a call-in service per se, because you're on the internet, but as long as you've got an internet and you got a mic and you can speak to us, then we can actually have a chat about it. If you do decide you want to join us on Discord tonight, then head to the Discord. With the link is now in the chat wherever it is for what you're watching, and log in, do all those kind of things you need to do for Discord, or set up an account and head to the waiting room. And if I see you in the waiting room, I may well drag you in at some stage and have a bit of a chat about the things we are talking about. Now, if you watched last night's show, Chewy was watching with us, and he jumped in and he said, have we talked about Donald Trump yet? And because the last two nights have been so very much full of Uffindell, we haven't really got to Trump and what's happening at his home and what's happening in America with that, because we've been full of other things. But the good thing about that, it means it's given it another 24 hours to gestate, and we've got some more information about what went on at Mar-a-Lago, and we will be having a chat about that at some stage in the next hour as well. Now, I think Chewy's going to jump on and join us at some stage, so we might save that for the second part of the show, because he was pretty keen to talk about it last night, and it would be good to talk to you about it tonight as well. So there you go. That's about us for now. If you're new to what we're doing, we do this every night at 10 p.m. We call this a news conversation. So we do talk about sort of the big news stories of the day, but we just chat about it, and we want you to chat about it, just like people are doing here, like Debong. Yeah, I have YouTube. I can talk on there. There you go. Like David, evening all. And David also wants to get, actually, what I'll do with your comment about Mar-a-Lago, David, is I'll actually highlight it, and that means I can come back to it later on when we talk specifically about that. It will help me not lose it. But I think where we'll start today is because we've covered it pretty intensively over the last two nights. We will look at where the Sam Uffindell situation is right now. We'll give you an update on all of that. Now, again, if you're just watching us for the first time, what we do here is we kind of, in the internet world, it's called an RSS feed, bringing a whole bunch of things together into one source. We go through all the media outlets, and we find snippets and clips and bits and pieces from numerous outlets, and then we bring it to kind of in one package. So tonight we're going to start with the story leading news hub, and then we're going to show you a little bit about Christopher Luxon, who was on breakfast. And what else have we got here? Oh, we're going to go to RNZ as well, and we're going to bring all those media outlets together, and we're going to let you know what's been going on at the moment. If you haven't been with us for the last two nights, evening Simon, if you haven't been with us for the last two nights, then we have been pretty I was going to use the word harsh, but harsh sort of implies overly mean. We haven't been, I think we've been appropriately annoyed the last few nights at this whole situation for lots of reasons. One of the reasons for me personally being, and I have got a little bit of skin in the game, I do feel a little bit bitter about it, is that I was a boarder at a boarding school, and the situation around Uffindell and the 13-year-old are the stories we used to hear about that some people did, but never saw them or never had them at the school that I was at. So I might have taken a little bit of personal umbrage at it, to be honest, because Uffindell seems to be the example. Evening, son.
Hello.
Uffindell to be the example of what everyone thinks boarding life is like, and it's not. That might sound a little bit petty that I'm kind of I've taken umbrage with it, but it's one of the things that's annoyed me. And Uffindell is one of those people who I knew of, because even though I went to boarding school Sacred Heart College in Auckland, I had lots of people I knew who went to King's, and even though I read an article the other day that said King started stomping out the bullying in the mid-90s, and I was at school before that, I can tell you before that, in the late 80s, early 90s, bullying was a hugely common thing at King's amongst the boarding fraternity. So it was certainly was part of their culture up until when I left school. He was at school, I think, in 99. They say it's gone by then. Don't know, but he's sort of the quintessential example of all those terrible stories you hear about boarding schools and boarders and what they do to younger people. G'day, dude. Hey, I've just kind of set up the show. We're going to start talking Uffindell and then we're going to do Trump, because it's something you wanted to get into, and I thought we'd leave that till you were definitely
it got kind of swallowed yesterday, didn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. But do you want to drop any truth bombs before we get into it, or can we just get into it? What do you want to do?
I just want to go, what amazing timing it was last night when we finished the show, jump onto Twitter, more revelations. It was exactly what we were saying, that there was going to be more to come.
Yeah.
And it just really hammers home what we were saying last night, is that he can't stick around.
No.
There's no chance he can stick around.
Well, the problem they've got at the moment, it's one of the things I like about doing this on a daily basis, is we kind of start a conversation on one night, that because we're just having a chat, it's like, Chewy, you and me have turned up to the pub, yeah? And we've got, now, as I was saying yesterday, and the conversation continues on, yeah?
Yeah.
As we were talking about, Labor has been when I say very good, I mean they've been smart and not doing anything about this, not commenting on this at all. And I can only say that if it was the reverse, the other way around, I don't have the faith in the National Party that they would leave it alone. They probably wouldn't. But the reason that Labor has to leave it alone, or else I'd be criticizing them for hypocrisy, is they're the party at the moment that's trying to explain to National and explain to all of us that these 16-year-olds that are committing crimes, we need to figure out how to give them a second chance, to give them a chance to succeed. Now, that means they're talking about Sam Uffindell when he was 16, someone who did something horrific, who needs to be rehabilitated and given another chance. Now, if Labor came out today going, what are you doing? He should have been for the high jump, then they'd be being hypocrites, because he's actually the teenager, although he may not be the teenager, because he is also obviously comes from money and has privilege in that area. But he's an example of the teenager that Labor's now talking about to National, saying these kids need to be given a second chance. So they shouldn't be saying anything about this. The irony is National is the party at the moment that's saying these kids need to be given no more chances. They need to be off the social welfare for 13 weeks. They need to be harsher penalties for their RAM rates. So National's the party that's saying these current 16-year-olds need to be given no more chances, yet they then hold up someone who has been given all the chances. And Labor's the ones going, these kids should be given more chances. And that's why it's appropriate they haven't said anything about Uffindell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, as I said last night, when you said just now that it has to go, is the one thing Labor will have the right to actually go after National for is if there's another by-election. Because if there's another by-election, then that speaks more to the process of National rather than the person of Uffindell. They'll be able to go, these guys tell the whole country that they're the ones who are going to look after your money and respect. What was the term the other day? And I said this would come back to haunt Luxon at some stage. Little did I know it would be a week later when he was talking about National respecting the taxpayers' money. It's not government money, he said. They need to treat it with more respect. Well, what's he going to do if there's another $1.4 million taxpayer bill for a by-election in Tauranga because of this? That's when Labour has every right to go ballistic at National.
Well, I'm guessing because National has such concern for taxpayer dollars that they're going to front it.
I actually thought that today. I thought the only way that they could do it and save face is to get one of their multi-millionaire donors to actually, $1 million donation to the actual funding of it. If they did that, I think I would be able to go, oh, well, they stood by it. Fair cop. No, that's fair enough. But that's the only way they'd get around it. So,
I don't know if they legally can, but
no. So they're stuck. They're stuck with this, right? National desperately do not want a by-election. They desperately now do not want Uffindell. If he doesn't resign, he sits in Parliament for 12 months as an independent when they kick him out, because this is all going to happen. I said this 2 nights ago. When they kick him out, he sits in Parliament as an independent, a la Jamie Ross. And then he loses at the next election, but he still sits there for the whole time. If he does resign, then it's another by-election, another $1.4 million. You know what I thought this afternoon? You ready for this?
Yeah.
Winston Peters comes into Tauranga.
No.
I mean, wouldn't that? No. But honestly, okay, stop with your silly socialism. Stop with your socialism. Listen to the thing. Put your political cap on. Wouldn't that be a perfect opportunity for Winston to come in and go, do you see what these National guys are doing? You need my solid hands back again, Tauranga. Honestly, wouldn't that be a good move from him?
It's like a bloody candy man. You say his name 3 times, he comes back.
But I'm right, aren't I? I'm right in that, aren't I?
He can't stay off the Twitter, so he clearly wants to come back in. And I think I said this a few months ago, like, there's a certain poetry in the fact that the only way that Winston would ever leave Parliament is in a box, which, I could see him doing. Look, I just don't know how it's going to go, but it's a mess. It's a mess any way you cut it. I saw that one of the things that Luxon brought in was something that he was calling National 101.
I was in the process of typing Winston, says David.
Well, that's 2 times, and I've said it, so he's definitely coming back now. Luxon put in this policy called National 101 for new candidates in March, I think it was, and Uffindell came in April. And all that's been said is, well, he didn't do the National 101 program, whatever that is. But so if he came in after they had this sort of intake orientation, whatever the hell it is, why didn't he do it?
Of course.
It's just weird.
There are people here who are on board. The devious side of me would love Winston back in Parliament, cause mayhem on the night. Look, I think I actually know. You know what? I've been pretty confident on the very first night this came out. We started talking about it. I said Uffindell will go. Last night I said he has to go. Today I'm more convinced that he will go. He'll go from National at the very least. I don't know. Because if he stays in Parliament as an independent, he's still there as a reminder to National to point out all the failings of the system within National and the kinds of people they get. Like I said last night, and like I tweeted out today, National punches down. They metaphorically punch down on people like 16-year-old beneficiaries, solo mums, DPB people that have no power. That's their MO. They metaphorically punch down, and they get people to come on board as their MPs who literally punch down, 16-year-olds on 13-year-olds. And it's if he stays in Parliament as an independent, that vibe will still be there the whole time, even if he's not as a part of the National Party. So there's no win here.
My mind goes back to just looking up his name, make sure I got it right. Hamish Walker, the guy that they had, I think technically South Dunedin candidate. He was that one that was there very briefly, resigned, and under a cloud, and just sat there collecting his paycheck.
Yeah.
This is just going to be
Yeah.
like that again, paying a guy
Yeah.
to do nothing.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. They could golden handshake him and say, "Get out, and we'll make sure you keep your $120,000 salary, even if we have to fund it ourselves." Until well, what happens when you're in an election? Let's say the election's held in October. You keep getting paid your salary until I think the first of the following year. I think that's what happens in government. So they could well do that. But if they did that, that's still, I don't know. There's no for national, and I'm purely talking politically. There's no good look at the moment for national.
No.
Just none.
No, the boat left. I mean, I saw people taking a swing at Trevor Mallard. I think, or was it Mike Hoskins had a column today saying that the way that Luxon's handled this is instructional for how Jacinda should have handled Trevor Mallard, the bully. And I'm just like, I don't think that comparison doesn't work, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Hey, let's have a look at the actual story. We're kind of getting there ourselves, but there's a few things we want to tie into it. Let's start with the News Hub. This was the first story that came out this evening. Sorry.
Kia ora, good evening. The controversy surrounding Tauranga MP Sam Uffindell could trigger another by-election less than 2 months after the last one. He's been stood down from National after new allegations emerged from a woman who says Uffindell bullied her while they flattered together at university in Dunedin. Earlier this week, he admitted violent...
And without getting into conversations now, as I tweeted out last night, colour me surprised. Anyone is literally anyone surprised about this, which is why when the National Party in one voice got behind him yesterday, we were a bit like, more to come, more to come.
Beating a fellow boarding school student at prestigious King's College. National leader Christopher Luxon says a staff member failed to pass on a message about red flags concerning his past. We'll cross live shortly to our reporter Isabel Ewing at Parliament, but first, her report.
Christopher Luxon has backed his newest MP from the get-go, from his election win just 7 weeks ago.
We've got a really outstanding new Member of Parliament joining us in Sam.
Oh.
And even...
You know what it's a bit like? Not that the crimes are as serious. All those people who had interactions with people like Jared from Subway and said really nice things about him, and now they're like, not saying it's as serious, but you know what I mean? It's like, well, it does that. And in the space of 36 hours, that has not aged well.
Through revelations of Sam Uffindell's bullying past.
I punched a student in there numerous times in the arm and the body. I did stuff that I'm not proud of at all.
He is a good candidate and he's a high integrity person.
But now a fresh allegation of harassment emerging from Uffindell's former flatmate in Dunedin.
I was locked in my bedroom because I feared for my safety, and he was smashing.
Now we are going to listen to this call and it's full as well, so just so you know that's coming up.
And swearing, and I ended up climbing out of my bedroom window and ran to a friend's house.
In a statement, Uffindell said a number of flatmates fell out and 2 left, and he rejected any accusations of intimidation or bullying. And now a different tune from his leader.
Do you no longer trust Sam Uffindell?
All I'm saying is new and serious allegations came to light last night. I want to make sure that they get properly investigated.
Uffindell has been stood down pending the outcome of that investigation, the party closing ranks.
I certainly feel for his family. I feel for the people who have been affected by actions from the past.
I have nothing to say other than my thoughts go out to victims of all bullying.
There you go. That'll do for now. We're going to there's another kind of 30 seconds from this conversation where, remember we played the clip last night. We might play it later on if it comes up about speaking on the street to the people of Tauranga. And they were very much like, oh, give them another chance. Now, it's a very silly thing to say they've changed their tune because it's a very small snapshot. But it's interesting that the TV news has played 2 very different sets of clips. So tonight, the people on the street in Tauranga say this.
Tauranga voters losing patience.
Oh, it's a bit dusty, I'd boot him.
I think the fault actually lies with the National Party and their vetting.
I actually think he should actually go.
He's got too much baggage behind him.
Though some support remains.
Give the poor guy a break.
A break not likely for Sam Uffindell.
Okay, Isabel.
So there you go. That'll do. Then she goes into the conversation about what has to happen for a by-election, which we've already covered off. So he needs to resign. That'll trigger a by-election. If they kick him out but he stays, then he's an independent in Parliament until the next election. Do you think people in the chat, I mean, there's plenty of you watching at the moment, which do you think for national, answer me this, riddle me this, for national, which would be better? Him resigning, meaning a by-election, or him staying as an independent? People in the chat, let us know what you think. The other thing I guess they could do, mind you, they need to know the election date to be able to go within 6 months. So if they resign within 6 months of an election, there's not a by-election, but then you need to know the election date. So if it was October, what does that mean? Like March, April, May, June, July, August. No, that's not even then. May, June, July, August, September. So it'd have to be, he'd have to stay till like Mayish of next year anyway, or April, May of next year. So that wouldn't work. So by-election or so the two options are him resigning, which triggers by-election, or him staying, obviously national kicking him out, because I don't think the third option is him staying in national. I don't think that's an option, but him staying as an independent. Which do you think is better for national? That's what I'm asking you, not your personal choice, but what's best for national. Sorry, Joey, off you go, brother.
With that question, I would say, like, you've got a question of integrity that's hung over all of your new candidates. If you want to clean slate the whole thing, you need to take the option that has the most integrity. And to me, that is, we picked the wrong guy. He doesn't represent our brand. He is gone no matter what the cost. So whether they take that option or not, I don't know.
So people are saying
to watch.
People are saying straight away, no, I'm interpreting as firing him, meaning he stays in as an independent, because firing him doesn't cause, he has to resign from politics. Yeah. For there to be a re-election, a by-election. So I'm taking firing him as meaning firing him stays an independent. So that's firing him, and then by-election, and then resign. Oh gosh, it's going too fast now. Resigning, firing is another one there. Firing him, fire him, save the cost of a by-election, and then there's some more that go on. So most people are kind of saying stay as an independent. That's interesting. Yep. Because I think it would probably be better for national to have a by-election. It's gonna blow up in their face either way, and I think personally by-election is probably better for them.
Yeah.
Because then at least they can go, it was a mistake, it's behind us. Whereas if they're looking across the house or at the end of the house, seeing their mistake for the next 12 months, I think that could be more damaging long term, just for national.
Oh, he'd be the whipping boy. You could just roll him out and just smack national around with the fact that they fucked it up again.
Yeah.
For months to come.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look at Christopher Luxon this morning. Christopher Luxon this morning on breakfast. Now, for those who aren't aware of the timeline, as Chewy said, we got off air last night at, 10 past, quarter past 11. I was probably sort of in bed around midnight, quarter past 12, somewhere there. And I popped up on my phone there, and I actually read it for the first time and went, hang on. Someone just typed something up, and then I looked to a news headline and it was out. So this happened after the show last night, or potentially at the very end of the show and before this morning. So breakfast this morning, obviously it's a 7 a.m. interview or something like that. It had happened. And I don't know if any more revelations have come out during the day, but it had happened.
No, I haven't seen anything.
But possibly Mr. Luxon hadn't heard from, and I'll say at the moment, to be fair, the alleged victim, because Uffindell's denying it, but I have to say, and we'll get to the call shortly, there's some fairly good corroboration, all right? Because remember, when it happened, when he was at university, allegedly happened, no one knew who he was going to be or what he was going to be, so there's no reason for anyone to back then to make up stories, but there's people who have corroborated it from back then. But we'll get to that shortly. So first part of this question is talking a bit about Mr. Luxon taking the allegations pretty seriously.
Yeah, look, it is. We took serious allegations that we received late last night. They are serious and they're concerning. I can tell you as a father, my daughter flatting, I'd want them to be properly investigated. On the other hand, Sam disputes those allegations. And as a consequence, the right way forward is to have an independent investigation over the next 2 weeks, led by Maria Jew, QC, to actually make sure that we get to the bottom of it. And then we'll take it from there.
When did you first become aware of his past?
As I said, it was, I think, on lunchtime on Monday afternoon. And we spoke about those issues, obviously, and he spoke with you yesterday about those issues. But what happened was late last night, there was a new allegation made, and that is serious and concerning, and it needs proper investigation.
I'm interested in that clip where he talked about as a father, and he talked about if it happened to his daughter. I'm like, what about as a father, my son getting beaten with a leg of a chair? You know, that it just seemed interesting that he was like, you know, if I was a father and that was my daughter, I would take it very seriously. And I'm like, well, hang on, if you were a father and that was your son at King's, it feels, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it feels a bit like he's saying this is more serious because if it was my daughter as opposed to if it was my son.
I've always hated that answer personally. You know, the only way that he can empathize with someone is if there's a family relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, no, as a person, this is shitty. Just say that. You know, you don't have to be a father to appreciate that was a crap situation.
The conversation goes on, and Mr. Luxon gets pressed if I've even forgotten his name, Uffindell, still has his support.
Well, again, we'll find out in the next few weeks, because really what this investigation is about is looking at both sides of that allegation.
We had this conversation obviously yesterday, and we heard from a lot of our viewers, and we had a conversation about the fact that character has a lot of currency in politics. So what does this say about someone's character, whether or not the allegations that have now come to light as of last night, whether or not those are true? What does it say about someone's character that they're able to take part in a violent attack on a younger student, even if they are a teenage boy?
Yeah, well, that's what was so concerning, Maddie, about the incident at King's, because, you know, for that victim, you know, that has impacted them tremendously, caused huge pain, hurt and suffering. But we also have to find the balance, right, where, you know, I know as a parent, when I think about, you know, my kids being bullied in that way, that would be incredibly distressing. I'd be very angry about it. Equally, if someone has genuinely reformed and rehabilitated and is a different person and has declared it up front, and, you know, we've probed that and we believe that they are different, then we give them a second chance. I can tell you there wouldn't be many MPs in Parliament if you have to have a perfect past. But
let me just say this again. I actually tweeted this out not long ago. If people are following me on Twitter, they would have seen it. We all have skeletons. We all have embarrassing mistakes from our past. Not many of in fact, none of my mistakes, don't know about you, Chewy, if they weren't seen as mistakes and if they were seen as the crimes that they are, would have caused me to have potentially 5 years in prison. So I don't buy this. None of us are perfect. This is at a different level. This is a I'm not perfect. And if actually, perhaps some might say justice had taken its path, this for an adult, yes, he was 16, but this for an adult, which is an attack with a weapon, could potentially be up to a 5-year prison sentence. Not many of us have those kinds of pasts, mistakes, quote unquote mistakes in our pasts.
Key thing is here, have you changed and are you different and have you improved your character? And so
what's the answer there? Is the answer that he has changed? Has he changed his character?
Based on our conversation with references, based on my conversations with Sam and the contrition and the remorsefulness and regretfulness you saw yesterday, that was my assessment. But again, when a new allegation comes in last night that I was unaware of, that the party was unaware of, we need to be able to investigate that in fairness both to Sam so that he gets natural justice and a proper process around that, but also in fairness to the alleged victim.
No. Now this is the thing I won't have. Okay, so here's the thing, right, that I thought about through the day. So a 16-year-old has got 22 years to become a stand-up member of society and is of good character. What he's now saying is, but a 19-year-old, because this happened in 2003, so he was either 19 or 20, right? Because he was born in 1983. A 19-year-old, that means he's only got 19 years to become a good character. So in other words, has he really lost all that good character that Christopher Luxon talked about because he did something else 3 years later? Or was Mr. Luxon wrong yesterday and he's not of good character? I really struggled with this idea of, you know, this 16-year-old who made a mistake is now of good character, but that 19-year-old fucker who made a mistake, let's get rid of him. there's a mismatch. There's a juxtaposition there where he either is a 19-year-old. You got to follow the same logic. He's either a 19-year-old that made a mistake and is now showing contrition, and he's a changed man, or therefore he wasn't a 16-year-old who's a changed man. Like he's still the dirtbag he always was. It feels like he's trying to have his cake and eat it too.
Well, you're looking for integrity, and for me, the link, the through line through this is that he didn't tell the full story to National about the first thing, and he didn't even mention the second thing until it came up. So really, what integrity or what currency does he have that he's been concealing this from?
He didn't show good character through that. He didn't show good character through that process.
There's no good character there.
He concealed and he lied, and I mean, even if it's an omission of the truth, I mean, I think most of us would consider an omission of the truth to be a lie. And like I said, they've been saying all day yesterday, oh, he was upfront about it. I guarantee he wasn't upfront about it. Because if yesterday that they had heard from him, like National had heard from him, yes, there was a chair leg involved beating a 13-year-old boy, that wouldn't have been said to the party prior to him being the candidate. There's no way.
No. Because I guarantee when it came out, the question would have been, is there at this point anything else that we need to know? Any other skeleton?
Oh.
Because your leader's going to go on the press circuit tomorrow and say that he has complete faith in you. We need to know. And he goes, oh, no, nothing at all.
But one of the problems that comes with entitlement is he possibly does think that he was just being a rowdy student, if this is all accurate and accurate. And it was what everybody does. I'm going to play for you shortly the call from the alleged victim and her father, who left the house he was in a different part of the country and came to Dunedin to help her. And that's the corroborating story. Do you think his daughter went, this guy is going to be in the National Party in 19 years, I'm going to cause trouble for him now? Or do you think something actually happened that caused that girl, that female, to phone her mum and dad and say, I need your help because of this person? What's more likely, Occam's razor? What takes a fewer number of assumptions to get to an answer? And I would say that's, in a court of law, that's pretty good corroborating evidence, in my opinion, in my honest held belief. I'll play one more clip from this breakfast show as well. I keep saying that because, it's a kind of a coverall, but it's also true. Maddie did quite a good thing here, because this is what we've been talking about for 2 days. How can you sit across the bench and start talking about things like youth crime? We haven't talked about 3 strikes and you're out, but youth crime, being hard on young offenders, making young people on benefits have consequences for their actions, whilst it feels to me, compared to the scale of his action, and we're still now just talking about the being expelled from school, he had very few consequences. And as we said yesterday, a bit of a free ride at the same time that Mr. Luxon is saying no more free rides. So Maddie kind of called him on that. And there's a really interesting interaction around seriousness to do with a serious accident. Have a listen to this.
Yeah, Maddie, what I'd say to you is there's a very big difference between drawing a bow between this incident and the 3 strikes law. The 3 strikes law is for very serious offenders here in New Zealand.
Is this not a very serious offence? If I was a 13-year-old boy in a high school,
good question,
and a group of older kids unprovoked attacked me while I was in my bed, allegedly with legs from a table, I would say that's pretty serious, Mr. Luxon.
I'm not denying that, Maddie. That's not what I said. I was talking about your link between this incident and the 3 strikes legislation. I am not condoning violence and what Sam did in any sense whatsoever. The trick was the key thing to understand is, had he actually changed his behaviour or not? And that's what the conversations with the media and with Sam yesterday were all about. What we've got is a new allegation that's emerged late last night that is concerning and serious, and I want it properly investigated so I can get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I don't buy it. Look, I'll say it again, I don't buy it. If you're giving a 16-year-old a break who made mistakes and who's a changed man now, then you're giving a 19-year-old who's a break who's a changed man now. You know what I'm saying? You don't go the statute of limitation is not 20 years, which sits between 19 years and 22 years. At 20 years, you don't go, like 20 years ago. The statute of limitation is not that, right? There's not like a line in the sand. If you're going to say that was 22 years ago, then you're going to say, well, that was 19 years ago, right? So there's there's a mixed message there. I don't know if it's hypocrisy, but it doesn't make sense. So either he shouldn't have given him a break for the 16-year-old, which is kind of what I think, or he should be giving him a break now because he did for the 16-year-old. Do you know? Because what's the difference between a 16 and a 19-year-old? Very little.
Yeah, you start learning things. Like, I mean, I think he's, you know, to be at 16 and you decide that that's a cool thing to do with your mates says something about the way that you're brought up and the environment that you're in. And then if this stuff at university is shown to be true, then it shows that he's learned nothing. So what National could also do here is clear the gates between 2003 and now. You know, get some people to vouch for this guy, or at least clean out the closet and hope that there's no one else.
Well,
yeah, right, smarmy smile.
As where is it gone? Look, see the text is jumping all over the place. Here we go. As Rose says very clearly, he's on 2 strikes.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're for the 3 strikes and you're out, surely that's at least 2. But wait till the third one comes out tomorrow or this evening. Hey, check your news sources. We should put a Google alert in for Uffindell and see if the third one's out already. Yeah. Because if this is what they're saying, you know, 3 strikes and you're out. Well, I mean, there's one very serious allegation. We're going to get to that right now with some corroboration, and one admitted assault with a weapon. Well, he hasn't admitted the weapon, but he goes, "No, I can't remember, but I couldn't say it definitely didn't happen." Please. Right. So let's have a listen. This is RNZ this morning. And this is obviously the person has remained anonymous, but this is the person in question who has alleged that Sam Uffindell was still a bully at university and still and basically she was fearful for her life. I'm going to play, when I say all of it, not the whole 10 minutes, but the first part of the conversation is the best part of 1 minute 45. Let's listen to it all and see what she's got to say.
I met Sam at university, my first year of university at Otago. We were in the same hall of residence and became part of the same friends group there, and ended up going flatting with him. There was him and 4 others in our second year of university.
And your experience flatting with him was something that worried you. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it was definitely a traumatizing event. Obviously, the freedom of being out of the hall of residence without, you know, the rules and authority to answer to there went to his head, and it was, you know, excessive drinking and drugs, and which resulted in a lot of damage to the flat physically, and then also bullying, verbal, emotional bullying to myself, to the point where it all kind of culminated one evening where I was locked in my bedroom because I feared for my safety. And he was smashing on my door and yelling obscenities, and, you know, basically telling me to get out and hit the road, fatty, and swearing. And I ended up climbing out of my bedroom window and ran to a friend's house to stay the night because I feared for my safety. I was scared.
In the same interview, it's a few seconds later, actually, RNZ also talked to the alleged victim's father, who came after a phone call from a fearful child.
My daughter rang me, rang my wife and I. She was seriously upset and traumatized. I went to Dunedin the next day to help her get out of the flat immediately. And I spoke to Mr. Uffindell and his other flatmates at the time. The flat itself was completely trashed. There wasn't a stick of furniture left. There was no crockery left. There were no handles left on anything. It had all been broken. And I gave the 3 of them a very serious peace of mind. But my daughter wasn't in any position to deal with this in a legal way, and we just took her out. She just went out of there and went into another place and set about recovering from this.
There you go. Again, we don't have any evidence one way or the other, but I'd say if those two witnesses were in a court of law, it's compelling, if nothing else, Chewy.
Oh, the thing that annoys me is they keep on minimizing. You know, oh, I enjoyed the student lifestyle of drinking and smoking weed and stuff like that. Like this guy was studying in Dunedin the same time I was.
Yeah.
And I remember having fallouts with flatmates and that sort of thing. But again, we come back to the integrity. You know, I didn't break a fucking thing in my flat. And any falling out with flatmates was solved before we got to the point of hammering on doors and people having to jump out fucking windows. It's just mental.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, don't hold that up as like, oh, it's just normal shenanigans. It's not normal.
Yeah, I was just reading some of the text that came in as well. There we go. I agree, actually. Round of applause for this father. What a good What a good Can
you imagine getting that sort of phone call and going, don't worry, I'm in the car.
Look,
I'm on my way. It doesn't say where it came from, but
no, I think that's for the privacy of the daughter, probably. I'm fair in these situations. I mean, Dad turning up to the flat the next day, you can't actually actively say that what he saw was at the hands of Uffindell. You know, who knows? There might have been a big party, that kind of stuff. So what we have is a testimony from the daughter as to what she says happens, and a testimony from the father as to the state of his daughter. They're really the two things that matter. As for the, how beat up the flat was, I mean, Uffindell might have done literally none of that. He might have done all of that. We don't know. We haven't been told that. We don't know. And it's right to be fair, which is why we always say we can walk and chew gum. We don't know that. We're not going to speculate about that. And when we do have an opinion, we'll say, this is my opinion. And my opinion is there is at least a plausible situation there. Like, for example, the daughter and the dad are two witnesses. Uffindell's said it never happened. Fair, but bring your witnesses. Because, sorry, your word means jack shit right about now. Bring your witnesses and see what comes from there. The other thing I wanted to say, and this is the thing about National, I think they made a massive mistake, and we kind of have talked about this, getting behind him. Remember these MPs from yesterday's news basically saying, he's apologised.
This latest bombshell is leaving National MPs with a bad case of deja vu.
Oh, look, obviously that's disappointing, but the reality is that's an issue which has come to light.
He's obviously apologised. To me, that was a very sincere thing to do.
Tauranga voters,
and then it's the piece about Tauranga voters going, oh, yeah, he should stay. There's not such a big deal after all. So
Simeon Brown just vomiting up a fucking Scrabble bag of meaningless words.
They say a day is a long time in politics, don't they? So this is probably the example of it. I feel like we're up to date. Is there any comments we want to pass out about that? Because it's like, I guess third night in a row, right? I said it the first night, third night in a row, you can't stay. Right? No. Said that on the first night with George, said that last night with George and Chewy, saying it again tonight. He can't stay. There's no way. Now, when I say he can't stay in National. And his word means nothing.
Yeah.
So he can't defend himself. And this comes back to that conversation yesterday where we learned that when they were checking about his character, perfect time to use fucking air quotes, isn't it? Character. They explained that they checked with people and businesses after schooling. So all the time through schooling, when we are told he was a complete dirtbag and a bully and violent, none of those people were involved. Maybe some of those people need to get involved in the conversation. Who was his housemaster at the school? Who were the other flatmates in this flat? Maybe we need to know more about it. Because there's this idea about, I remember interviewing Don Brash, and I asked him some really blunt questions about his infidelity. And he said no one had ever asked him about his cheating before. And I went, oh, cool. And the point I made to him was, I don't want to know what happens in your bedroom, Donald. No, I don't. But it's what happens when you think no one's looking that reveals your true character. And I said to Don Brash, how can we trust you as a country to run our country if the person who is closest and most intimate with you can't trust you because you've cheated on multiple partners? And to his credit, he said that's a fair question, and he answered the question basically by saying people of New Zealand have to go and decide. So the true test of his character is not what is being said now, not what he's fooled the National Party into thinking, but what happens when no one was looking, in the flat at university, in businesses, at places overseas, when he was working in businesses overseas, what happened on their social nights, that when no one's looking and when no one knows that I want to be an MP, that's when you see what the test of character is. Not, and I'm not saying he has a literal PR team around him because he's just a backbencher. What he at the moment he is. When you're a backbencher trying to get a seat in Tauranga, So let's hear from some of those people who have seen him when no one's looking. That will tell us of his character.
It just screams to me that National looked at his LinkedIn and went, "Yep, good enough." Worked overseas for a bunch of banks. Deutsche Bank, awesome. Cool, we like banks. Yeah, come on. Got a blue suit? Awesome, you're in. Secret handshakes here.
Are you white? Are you white?
White male in
Some money
banking with a
behind
blue
you?
suit? Fucking all you need, mate. And you come. And you
Let's just also, what was I about to say? I had a thought in my noggin, but I'm doing three things at once and it popped out of there. Nah, it's gone. We'll leave it. Yeah, look, we'll wrap up this part of the show again by just saying he can't stay. He's got to go. No. He will go on some level, and the longer he stays, the worse it's going to be for National. I wouldn't be surprised if he was gone tomorrow. I know that they said justice is happening. There'll be another complaint, and Luxon will go on the balance of probability. We think it's best if we separate ways. So we've removed him from the National Party. And then the question will be, will he resign or will he stick around? Because you also got to say, financially, if nothing else, what do you do if you're like, okay, this is my job now. I've got a mortgage to pay. This is, who I am. This is what I'm doing. I mean, I don't know much about his background. If he's not a John Key with 50 million in the bank sort of thing. What happens? Is it something that he goes, well, actually, I've got to pay my mortgage, so I'm sticking around? Or is it, I'm worth several million from my Deutsche Bank days and whatever. I'll just go lie on the beach in Tauranga. Don't know.
Just one last thing before we move on from this. Just for the players at home wanting to fill out their Sean Plunkett bingo card.
Oh, God.
Where are we? Here we go. This is the, I think the fourth or fifth time where he has used these exact same words. Anybody else feeling for insert scumbag of the day?
Sean
Plunkett. Always,
was it today
always
though? Oh shit, it was today.
Yeah.
Oh God.
That's today.
Show
the
me
man
some
never
replies.
misses.
There's got to be some. There's got to be some pushback. Has he been ratioed? There's got to be some pushback, surely.
Oh, absolutely.
Anything at all?
There's just people. Yeah, sounds like you, Sean. Bullies supporting bullies. Yeah, no, he's getting absolutely clapped here.
Well, you can see, when we've talked about this a few times, the Plunkett is certainly going for that alt-right audience. That's where they think their thing is, and that's what they think they can monetize.
Just contrarian. Yeah. It's like I'm sure he did a tweet that was like, "I feel really, really sorry for Harvey Weinstein."
Oh God. Good grief. All right, let's go to some fun stuff now, shall we? Talking about the greatest democracy in the world falling over.
Please be crowd shot.
Let's start off just with a bit of an update as to what's been going on.
That unprecedented FBI search of the former president's home is triggering a political firestorm on the right. Donald Trump says he is the victim here, not the bad guy. And most Republicans are getting in line behind him. In a statement, the former president calls Monday's search, quote, prosecutorial misconduct, the weaponization of the justice system, and an attack by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024, and who will likewise do anything to stop Republicans and conservatives in the upcoming midterm elections. The former president offered no facts to back up any of that. And we should note the search warrant was issued by a federal magistrate. But 91 days now to the midterm election, and as Trump prepares to run again in 2024, it is clear Trump and most other Republicans see an opportunity to mobilize the GOP base here. Perhaps most striking in the Republican reaction were the words of the man who might be Speaker, the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy. Again, the warrant was legally executed, but McCarthy called it intolerable and put the Justice Department on notice should Republicans take control of the House come January.
This is shocking.
Attorney General Garland, McCarthy said, preserve your documents and clear your calendar.
So he's threatening that if we get the White House back, we're gonna do to you what they're doing to Trump by Jerry. I mean, it's funny, his name's McCarthy. You talk about McCarthyism, full stop. But it's that's what he's threatening. So he's threatening retribution, payback. I'm not going to do this one because I've got some responses later on. So this is, I forget her name, but she's one of the White House correspondents, and she was talking about the GOP is actually genuinely worried. Many in the GOP is actually genuinely worried about this raid.
So I do think there is a part of this where he's using this to his political
He
advantage.
being Trump.
But there's also the other aspect of this where people in his own orbit are saying they went and executed a search warrant on his residence. They've got concerns about whether or not there is something more there because they believe it is so explosive and delicate and sensitive that there must be something if they took that step. Whether or not that there is remains to be seen, of course.
Right.
And finally, from the same CNN report, actually it's a different CNN report. This is just a little bit about how the GOP is responding. The GOP, governors and senators, etc.
Outrage and condemnation swiftly pouring in from top Republicans following the unprecedented FBI search of former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago.
I just put that on HD because then we can actually read them. So Dr. Roger Marshall, Lindsey Graham, time will tell regarding this most recent investigation. Rick Scott, the FBI's raid of Mar-a-Lago is incredibly concerning, especially given Biden's admin history of going after parents and other political opponents. This is third world country stuff. Who else we got in here? Ron Paul, the FBI raid on President Trump was approved by Director Wray, who also claimed that the illegal FISA warrants used to spy on Trump were constitutional. Lauren Boebert, who we're going to hear from later on, weaponizing the FBI to raid President Trump's home makes Watergate look like nothing. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the absolute rodeo clown in Congress, defund the FBI. It's funny, how we talk about the shell game to do with political parties, and for so long, defund the police was the utmost.
You can't defund the police.
Unpatriotism, the worst thing you do, and now literally. And it wasn't actually Congress who was saying that. Might have been a few members, but it wasn't a lot of politicians. It was more the ground roots. Now the politicians are saying defund the FBI, defund the CIA.
Can you defund the FBI? Because I know that I'm next on the list.
Marco Rubio. The FBI isn't doing anything about the groups vandalizing Catholic churches, firebombing pro-life groups, or threatening Supreme Court justices. But they find time to raid Mar-a-Lago. Good bit of whataboutism there.
I'm pretty sure the FBI is capable of doing more than one or two things at a time.
30 seconds left on this. Let's have a listen.
Residents, Congressman Mike Turner, the top Republican member on House Intel, tweeted this as the lead Republican on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intel. I am demanding an immediate briefing by FBI Director Wray regarding the national security risk that allegedly rose to the level of ordering a raid on the residence of a former president.
And this is from the Republican House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy. He tweets at Attorney General Merrick Garland to, quote, preserve your documents.
He says, Attorney General Garland, preserve your documents and clear your calendar. I've seen enough. The Department of Justice has reached an intolerable state of weaponized politicization. When Republicans take back the House, we will conduct immediate oversight of this department, follow the facts, and leave no stone unturned. Attorney General Garland, preserve your documents and clear your calendar. So that's where we're at today. There's a few more bits and bobs, but you go, Chewy, jump in for anything?
Oh no, I'm just like their whole machine is just eating itself. I mean, this is a function of the FBI is to investigate internal stuff like politicians and that sort of thing. It's well and truly within their purview. It's just they're like, oh shit, no, it's not us you're supposed to be going after.
Yeah.
You're our attack dog. What are you doing?
Yeah, the same guys that for forever and a day have been pro police, pro country, pro government, pro police. Thank you for your service, FBI. Now when the target gets pointed at them, are like, this is wrong. This is wrong. I also wanted to show a little bit about some of the commentators. Now I've only got an example of one because he's my fave. Stephen Crowder talking about what they think they're going to do and what they think should be done with what's happening. A couple of short clips from him.
Anyone who claims to put on our team jersey and doesn't actively advocate for the dismantling, dismembering, complete restructuring, if at all, of all of our intelligence agencies, there is a special place in hell for people like you. It's one thing to wear the jersey of evil. It's another to try and link arms with us and then turn on us. How's that for a purity test?
If at all, meaning let's no longer have, intelligence bureaucracies. Here's one as well. Here's his big threat to the politicians about he's not going to vote for them.
Any Republican right now in office or running for office who does not actively champion the defunding, the dismantling of our intelligence agencies, I will not vote for. Don't care who it is.
What the fuck?
Are you listening, Ted Cruz? Are you listening, DeSantis? Are you listening, Rubio? Are you listening, no?
So I guess the thing is he does have 5 million followers, I think, on YouTube or whatever he's using now. So he's got some clout and some sway when it comes to talking to voters. But I just thought, just for fun, we better have allegedly former Ted Cruz's mistress share her thoughts now that she's made her way into Congress somehow.
You guys, I'm pissed. We are a nation of law and order, and this raid by the FBI on President Trump's home is totally un-American. This is Gestapo crap, and it will not stand. The Department of Injustice needs to be cleaned out if they're going to start pretending we're some sort of banana republic. This is exactly why we conservatives are opposed to the 87,000 new IRS agents Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats want to hire, right after spending $700,000 on ammunition for the IRS.
So she's no longer pro Second Amendment from the sounds of things because she's worried about them buying more ammunition.
It was Trump today, but you're next if we don't take a stand.
Well, you're next if you steal classified information from the White House that you're not supposed to remove and take it away with you to your Florida home. If you do that, then I think she's right. You probably are next.
Remember, this is about power. Today was a complete show of force. This is about the desire of the deep state to have a total control. And President Trump is standing right in their way. They spied on Trump. They lied about Trump. And I'm calling for a select committee into this political raid of Trump. Preserve your documents and clear your calendars, Democrats. These leftists continuously create new distractions from their failed policies that Americans are paying the price for.
So there you go. And you go first, Joe, because one other thing I'm going to add in there. You go first.
I was going to say, I just want to jump on one comment there. She's actually mixed up two different agencies there when she's referred to the Banana Republic.
Yeah.
Because that if she's talking about Banana Republics, that's the CIA, not the FBI. But who would benefit? Who out there at the moment would benefit from the complete dismantling of the US's intelligence arms?
Well, the funny thing is, a bunch of commentators on the left are like, "Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. We'll get behind that." You know.
Oh, yeah.
There's one other thing, right? And this is a really important, the shell game. I'm going to say it one more time.
Mm-hmm.
That when it's something that they don't like, it's not part of their narrative, they accuse the others of doing it. When they want it in their narrative, they want to do it. I heard Rudy Giuliani today talking and saying, we're going to, and they're all using the term third world country or banana republic about locking up your political opponents, right? And how terrible it is, and using force against your political opponents, and how it's terrible. Does anyone remember this?
The forgotten men and women of America will be forgotten no longer. That is the heart of this new movement and the future of the Republican Party. People came to vote, and these people, the media, they said, where are they coming from?
Where are they coming from?
What's going on here?
What's going on?
These are hardworking, great Americans. These are unbelievable people who have not been treated fairly.
That I'm grifting.
Hillary called them deplorable. They're not deplorable.
Yep.
So when the Republicans, and I know
who would have thought,
I know it's the audience here,
that a word was going to play so badly,
right?
That's the problem in politics. One wrong word and it's over. She also said irredeemable, but we won't mention it.
But many Republican politicians, including Trump, were happy to use the phrase and the threat to lock up Hillary Clinton when there's no crimes that we know. Oh, look, I'm not a Clinton fan to start with. There are some stuff
not at
that's
all.
dodgy as in the Clinton Foundation. But what I'm saying is there looks like there could well be crimes here, and it's going through the correct process or through the judges to the warrants being executed. That's the banana republic. How dare you put the eye of the justice system on a political opponent, whereas just years ago when he was running, he wanted to put the eye of the Justice Department on his political opponent. It's the shell game. It's all over again.
Yeah. I think it's the thing that they wouldn't have expected was this, because over Trump's term, they tried to stack the deck as much as possible by their people that they were appointing into positions of authority and power in organizations like the FBI and the Supreme Court and that sort of thing. So I think it's almost shock of like, no, we made sure that this wouldn't happen. Why is it happening? Oh shit.
Yeah. And just to kind of wrap this all up, and I know this is a sort of a coverall as to what, great people, the great people on both sides. Remember that conversation? Let's just have a look at also some of the other, the shell game that's going on at the moment, right? This is, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about January 6 prisoners. This is all a part of the same sort of conversation and how shocked and disgusted she was. She reportedly had the opportunity to meet with some of the individuals in the jail as conditions barely passed the legal mark. She describes that these individuals are being denied visitation, religious services, and legal counsels based on their vaccination status. She also described that these people are being denied rights to basic grooming. We reported on this fact when the last letter came out from the jail, and that's from launchliberty.com. Marjorie Taylor Greene sent out a tweet at some stage about the alleged criminals from January the 6th. Last night we toured the DC jail. My staff and I are writing a full report this morning. I bet she's not writing the report because that would involve sentences. This morning with our 3+ hour long tour. I've never seen human suffering like I witnessed last night. Never.
Please.
While some were shown to us in seemingly beneficial programs, others were in torturous lockdown. So the narrative at the moment by someone on the right is these people's rights are being taken away from them. They're not even having the ability to get a fair judge, a fair trial. Go back several years to Guantanamo Bay. And this kind of thing was happening because of the Republicans. For 50 days from November 2002 through January 2003, U.S. military interrogants kept Mohammed in solitary as they beat him, forced him into painful stress positions, exposed him to extreme temperatures, ear-splitting music, and sensory, that must have been country western music, and sensory deprivation, and terrorized him with dogs. They forcibly shaved his hair in bed. Was there something about hygiene in that one? They forcibly administered fluids intravenously and refused to let him use the restroom until he urinated on himself. Something about hygiene there as well. They made him dance. They made him pick up rubbish with his hands. When the torture brought Mohammed to the brink of cardiac arrest, the interrogators took him to a hospital and they continued to interrogate him in the ambulance. Doctors watched to ensure Mohammed did not die so that the torture could continue. So the same people, and I don't even mean literal people because Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't in politics then, who are calling for this sort of thing to never happen again, whether it's the police or the FBI going into Trump, or whether it's these poor prisoners not having their rights, are the same ones who are shouting, lock him up, for Hillary Clinton. They wanted the police to attack their political foe, and the same one that supported far worse when it comes to rights being trampled upon when it came to Guantanamo Bay. So let me just put it this way. Fuck you all guys. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. That from the leaders of the free world.
Yeah.
The bang on about freedom. Even if you don't go back as far as Guantanamo, how they were separating families and chucking people in literal cages in the middle of a pandemic with no medical treatment.
Yeah.
She's out of her fucking mind, but we know that.
Yeah,
just insane.
Yeah. All right. Listen, I love it when people completely don't hear what you say. These guys love the Clintons. The second worst candidate, according to polls, that there's ever been in American politics. Yeah, love her. wasn't a voter in America, but as we've said before, I think probably all of us, I'm not speaking on behalf of you, Chewy, you can correct me, if we were going to vote in the American politics, it probably would have been for Bernie. I certainly would have been for Bernie, certainly not Clinton. And I think the Democrats got what they deserved in Trump, but now they've got to clean up the mess, personally.
Yep. I also am sorry to see him unsubscribe. This person that I've never seen in our chat before ever. Fare thee well, fellow. Fare thee well.
Here we go. Back in those days, Marjorie Taylor Greene was a 9/11 denier. That would probably make sense. I get that. Other people are Sanders supporters. Yeah, look, I mean, not to get back into this conversation, poor old Sanders, got screwed over by Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC. And if he had been up against Trump, he would have won. And that could have been transformative to America. Yeah. And they didn't do it. There's a French philosopher, I could probably look it up, that basically a translation of one of the things he said is a country will get the government they deserve. And you know what? America deserved Trump. Sucked in.
In no world should Biden and Bernie be nominally in the same party.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. Like, there was no way he was going to get the Dem. He's too radical for the Dems. They need a we keep coming back to it. They need a civil war to sort their shit out, and that'll be horrible for everyone.
There's actually a pretty sound theory that countries should only be a certain size, and when you get to a magnitude of uncontrollable, when you get to a magnitude that 3% can be like several million people. Like when I was working in Talkback, I was the overnight guy. I was the bottom of the barrel. I was under the bottom of the barrel. Per capita, I had more listeners to me than Bill O'Reilly had viewers on Fox News per capita. Yet he could monetize his because there was 3 million of them.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's a theory that when a country gets too big, it's almost like the human species for a while. They grow, have a war, and they got to shrink it down. They grow, have a war, and they got to shrink it down. And I wondered for a long time if America is just too big. You know, it's too big. It's 330 million people can't be it. And actually, something that could be amazing for America as a country is to go back to being individual states. You know, the Texas economy is something like the 11th biggest in the world or the 7th biggest in the world, just in Texas alone. You know, so California. There is something. I think there's something in that as well. Yeah, but California's gone bankrupt for so long. But anyway, should we do some of these messages that have been coming in? David says, what do Watergate and Mar-a-Lago have in common? Republican presidential archives and Republican presidential wrongdoings. Carl says, this is, I guess, about national. How do they use new selection criteria and still ended up with the same conclusion? Incompetence. Paul says, this is about Uffindell. What he did to a 13-year-old, I guess, crime. What he did to her, crime. Taking drugs, crime. 3 strikes, yo. I don't think anyone's going to really, I mean, like, you're a student taking drugs, that kind of stuff. I don't think that's particularly a big deal. In fact, if he was talking about smoking cannabis, that shouldn't be a crime, in my opinion. Rose says, one more day, feeding on the bones, gone by lunchtime Friday. So there you go. There's a really specific one. I've just been saying he's got to be gone. Rose calling it lunchtime Friday. If that is the case, Ro, on Friday night, we will give you your due props, my friend. Oh, look, there's still messages. Any other texts you've been watching those live texts there? Anything else you want to throw out there, sir? Chewy?
Well, backing up what we said, we'll take the easy option here, and we'll just break that up. I mean, I like the quote that America isn't one country; it's 7 wearing an overcoat. You know.
All right, we're done for tonight, guys. We'll be back tomorrow night from 10 p.m. Thank you for joining us. It's not that I don't enjoy talking out one issue. Right, because it's what this is a conversation. We are fine to talk about what's in the news, and this Uffindell thing is still big in the news at the moment. I really do hope, though, the next 24 hours doesn't give us any more reason to talk any more about it tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Meaning,
put it this way, I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, I wouldn't be shocked either, but maybe we'll get a chance to get to some other things. Because what's happening now is every media outlet in the country is going through, like, the King's High School. There's probably online photos somewhere of the 1999 class and the 1998 class, and trying to locate all those people and try and get a hold of all of them. You know, RNZ, who obviously has the contact number of this ex-flatmate, is now saying, can you pass this on to the other flatmates? You know, there's chains going right now around of people trying to connect and get together, and media trying to find other stories as well. On some level, it might be trying to dig up dirt. On other levels, it might be trying to just bring. I think the story is, when I say over, it doesn't mean we're not going to talk about it, but I think it's done. I think he's done, and I think National says they're going to take 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if it finished sooner than that. I'm not quite as confident as Roe, who says gone by lunchtime Friday. But equally, they might use that 2 weeks to line their ducks up and take a hit for 2 weeks to then get rid of him and go for a run up to the election. Don't know. But I still think he's gone. And remember, you heard it here first on, I think it was Monday night. We said he can't stay.
Yeah.
Someone in the messaging the other day said, "Oh, so you reported it first? That just means you're the most desperate to get conversations going." And I kind of went, yeah, it's probably maybe not most desperate, but yeah, there's element of truth in there, I guess, maybe. All right, guys. Anything else to wrap up?
Just one thing. If you get a chance, check out Guy and Espinar's interview this morning with Luxon.
Okay.
It is somewhat brutal, where I think Guyan even went at one point, "Come on, mate, put down your talking points." So if you haven't caught that one, it's a good one.
I messaged Uffindell's office because he said on, what's today, Wednesday? So yesterday was Tuesday. He said on Tuesday that he'd talk to anyone, like as one of the things. I messaged him quite late in the day, like after 4 and before 6. And I said to him very blunt, well, I didn't say to him, I would have gone to his PA or whatever. I'm like, I'm an ex-boarder. I have a perspective on this whole conversation. It's going to be a harsh conversation if you come on with us, but it'll be honest. Do you want to come on? And then between that and the next morning, the Otago University accusations came out. So there you go. Yeah, someone's mentioning Deutsche Bank as well. I mean, I suspect that'll be the other part of the investigation, former work colleagues. And, I just don't think that someone's going to be a drunkard. And this is, I guess, an assertion. I don't know how the facts for this, but a drunken, violent, drug-using, university student to then their first job in their first year, all of a sudden be a choir boy. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a likely scenario.
No,
so I guess we'll wait.
Feel like it.
We'll wait and see. But we'll wait and see. All right, team. Thanks for joining us. All right, Chewy, thank you for jumping in there, mate. We will catch you all tomorrow night from 10 p.m. Stay safe, my friends, and we will see you then.